So much, Amber. Hi, everyone, and welcome to my session. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And while I do that, I would love if you can please turn on your cameras just so that I can connect with you and I can see you. And also, I want to introduce you to my moderator today. With me, it's Wendy Clayton. Wendy works with me at the University of Dallas as our person for, Wendy, I don't want to mess up your title. Do you mind saying it?
I'm the Director of Instructional Design and Technologies.
Perfect. I was going to say she's a director of online learning, but I'm like, I don't think that's a title. Anyways, thank you, Wendy. Wendy is going to be my wing woman. And as you guys have questions on the chat, just in case you know how Zoom it is, sometimes you're presenting and you cannot see the chat function. Wendy's going to let me know that you guys have a question and she's going to let me know so I can answer those questions. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. What I want to talk to you about, it's about something that I believe almost all educators feel passionate about, which is obviously we always want to deliver a quality and a quality educational experience in which students engage, they thrive, and obviously they learn. The issue is that oftentimes, as obviously COVID taught us, interruptions will happen. We are going to have disruptions. So I want us to thrive. So hence the title, Thrive, Do Not Just Survive, Being Ready for the Next Class Disruption. Because as I believe, we all heard it and read it, COVID is here to stay. We don't know what is the next thing that might happen. So I want us to make sure we are ready, we are prepared with pedagogical tools and ways of managing a class that actually make a difference for students. So what does that mean? So let me go ahead and jump in with my slides. So first, a little bit of background. Class disruptions will continue to occur. We've seen it with the pandemic. We know we had to self-quarantine, but there are many other things that are happening that are not necessarily perhaps as long-lasting as COVID-19 was, but that can actually happen. For example, we can have extensive wildfires. We can have, right now, in the South is hurricane season. So when you actually get into hurricane season, that actually, once a hurricane hits you, you can be 3 or 4 days just in the hurricane, in the midst of it, and then it might take a week or 2 weeks to actually recover. So as we can see, there are many events that actually can happen where we may have a class disruption, meaning the normal traditional way in which you might be delivering your class, whether it's face-to-face or online, might be disrupted. So the way we looked at it, because this is a piece of work that I did with a few other co-authors, is that we look at it as when we are in higher education, if you think about it, we're actually providing a service. And this comes from studying the services literature that tells us, obviously, a service is a series of steps that we provide that the consumer often does not see, right? A service is usually intangible. We give them tangibles, such as physical evidence, so that our students can judge the quality of the service. Hence, for example, the slides, the projects, the book, how we look on Zoom, and so on. Now, one of the things that does happen with a service, just as teaching is that we are going to have variability and failures. It's meant to happen. So whenever we deliver a class, we know our mood, the mood of the class might obviously have an impact on how we deliver it, whether technology is working, and we are going to have failures, right? They're going to continue to occur, and it's part of this service co-production and consumption. In addition to that, one of the key elements which prompted this talk today is that we have to manage our students' expectations. Oftentimes, we might have heard, for example, colleagues that say, well, I can't believe the class is complaining about this, or I can't believe he or she asked for that. Well, the thing is that perhaps we need to provide a little bit more of grace, especially when we're going through a class interruption, and actually see what is happening. Have I perhaps not actually allowed them to adapt their expectations? And what have I done as a professor to also make sure they understand that the conditions of the class have changed for everyone? So that's one of the key things that I want us to start thinking about today. So, oops. as we are talking about setting up this, what are we going to do in an online or face-to-face delivery? We have service failures, which we know, yes, they're going to cause a disruption. The definition of normal is going to change. What does normal mean now? Can we still meet at the same times? Do I need to change certain things in terms of the window of opportunities to submit perhaps an assignment? And also because there was an interruption, which means we failed at the way we provide a consistent experience for our students. We also need to talk about how we're going to recover, how are we going to make it up for the students? Because ultimately, the ones in charge of the class, it's us. So we are in charge of that service recovery. It means that sometimes we need to rectify. This is not working. This is how we're going to do it now. Amend things, restore them, offer them an option, right? That's why, for example, it's so popular that when we are having Zoom sessions, we record them for those who cannot attend for whatever reason, then they can watch it later and catch up, right? But in addition to that, as the service providers, because we are in charge, we also need to think, as I previously said, about everyone's expectations and how we need to help them to change them, adapt them. And obviously, we also need to think about what are the things that I can do so that their service that they are experiencing, the education they're experiencing, continues as it was provided, as it was promised. Also, their satisfaction, engagement, and learning doesn't fall through. Right? So we also talk about how prompt we need to respond, what are the concerns that are happening within the class. So one of the things that we did, which I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but we studied what is called the SCARF model. So the SCARF model comes from Rock. He is a neuroscientist, and he actually studied obviously our brain and how it reacts. And he explains and he talks to us that the SCARF model, which I'll tell you what it is here in a minute, it tells us what are the biological functions and the way our brain works towards motivation. So the relevance of SCARF in education is that we can actually understand what are the factors that motivate students so we can create, as the slide says, an optimal state for learning. I want to make sure our students learn the material, they can apply it. In addition to that, we're having a service disruption, right? Anything can happen. So how do we make sure that we maintain their motivation so they can have the best possible experience and they can exhibit a very strong performance in the class? So what SCARF tells us is that there are 5 factors that play into a person's motivation. And SCARF has been, and Rock, the author, has been adamant the SCARF needs to be studied in education, in educational settings, and it actually hasn't. And that's why we were excited when we found that it hasn't really been, that there was this need to bring it, but people haven't really studied it. So we went ahead and did that. We find that SCARF proposes that people want to feel that their status is not lost. What does that mean? All of us are humans. All of us want our dignity to be respected. And that means we want to feel important, that we matter individually. So the point of status is that eventually when we are providing that belief and feeling of you are important, you matter in this class, the brain actually rewards the person and it actually drives people to learn because they feel that they matter, they feel heard. So they continue to provide their best performance and stay motivated. Certainty. Certainty means our brain wants to understand and forecast future outcomes. You might tell me, but wait, Laura, but we're just talking about an interruption, right? About hurricanes or an earthquake, or what if, the university, God forbids, but you have an active shooter situation, right? What happens there? Well, we want to make sure that we can forecast as much as possible. And we wanted to again, understand what will happen. So even if that means, for example, that we have to tell our students in an email, we are in the middle of a very bad storm or bad weather situation. Please wait 2 days until everything calms down and you'll get a follow-up email from me letting you know how we're going to adapt. What are we going to do? How are we going to move forward? Even that, just telling them, wait 2 days and you will hear back from me. It's a certainty, it's a peace of mind that we're affording the students that keeps them motivated. Autonomy. We believe that, again, people want to feel to a certain extent, if you think about it, autonomy is in control. So that perhaps they want us professors to stay in control, that we tell them what's going to happen and that we maintain that command of the class, right? So people want to avoid the feeling that there's no control associated with the fear around everything that might be happening, right? With that surrounding uncertainty or event. SCARF also proposes that relatedness matters. That means people, just as a status, they want to feel important. Our students also want to feel safe. They want to make sure that we all feel belonging, that we feel that we are in this together. And it's either with our environment, with other people, or what's happening in the social situation, which in this case is the dynamic of our classes. I can even share with you, back when we were, in the midst of COVID, I had a girl who actually texted me in a Zoom session and said, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate that we consistently meet on these days, on these times, because I feel like we're a part of a big family. And I feel like I'm connected, even though we don't see each other. So that is kind of the relatedness that our students need when we have a disruption. And last but not least, this is everyone's favorite, right? When we hear it, like fairness. Even my 8-year-old complains life is not fair. And I'm like, welcome to the club, kiddo. So a sense of fairness is our students want to perceive and see that there is a balance, right? That perceive like everyone is getting their fair share, things are adapted, but we want to make sure that there is a balance, that sense of fairness from all social interactions. So anyways, so that is the SCARF model. So what we did is we actually studied, okay, what matters for the students. And in this aspect, we said, okay, so when we deliver a class, it's actually a service, like I said, and service outcomes, we know people have expectations that have to be managed. People want a failure to be promptly addressed and corrected, right? And we also know people appreciate voicing concerns. These are key 3 outcomes that we know in the services literature, in service research matter. So how can SCARF help us to deliver these 3? Before I move on and tell you what matters for students and what doesn't, because there's a surprise, I promise you at the end, there's a little surprise that we did not see coming. I want to tell you how we operationalized it. And this is the key information. This is the practical implication of our study. This is how do we manage it in the classroom? So you already have a disruption, right? The Wi-Fi went out, or maybe, you had a hurricane, severe weather. Here in Dallas, we get severe weather. Sometimes it lasts a week, believe it or not. But anyway, so we may have the next virus, who knows, right? Service failures are going to happen. You might get sick, you may need an emergency surgery, somebody in your family. How do we recover? When we're talking about managing students' expectations, what students really valued, and obviously, again, these can bring back their satisfaction with the class, their engagement, and their motivation for learning. What matters is that the professor adapted his or her expectations towards live class attendance. So perhaps do not require class attendance as rigid as we would. Give them some grace that people, again, their Wi-Fi might be out too. Maybe they're also caring for brothers or siblings. So we need to manage those, providing expectations of, okay, if you cannot attend, at least let me see that later you watched the recording, right? Let me know that you watched it. Also, another thing they valued, that when we have deliverables, such as a project submissions, students want a window of days to submit. Now, notice how we are not saying, we're not sacrificing, for example, how, the delivery or the quality of our education. We're just simply allowing them for a window of days, because some of them, for example, their Wi-Fi might not be reliable. Or if you are truly in a situation where everyone's Wi-Fi is disrupted, or if somebody had an illness, right? So we want to make sure they have a window of opportunity to submit, and that so that they can still fulfill the requirements of the class. Also, by the same token, is with exams. I have to admit, I used to be of the idea that no, you have to take the exam during one day. And then as COVID happens and interruptions continue to happen, it is truly best to give them 2 or 3 days, maybe even 4, give them a window so that they can adapt and understand, again, I continue to respect you, I continue to support you as your instructor, and I am helping you to adapt everyone's expectations. The way we did promptness meaning again, how quickly we recover, how quickly we offer solutions. It's, for example, students appreciate that we offer extended virtual hours. You know, if a student needs to talk to you, maybe they have work, as we all know, they have other things going on. Even us as professors may have things going on that during the day might make it very difficult. But for example, perhaps in the evenings, if you have, you know, if you have a significant other who can watch your kids, or in that way, in the evening, it might be easier to meet with a student. So rather than being so centric in terms or so rigid of we only meet between 9 and 5, then maybe we'll meet at 7 at night, right? Or 6 in the morning. Okay, that sounded too early, maybe 6:30. Anyways, also our students want us to promptly respond to emails and messages. Number one, that we actually respond. It amazes me how I still hear, and I am sure nobody does this in this session, because if you are here, it's because I know you truly are like me, where we want to continue to improve and we want to continue to obviously do the best possible and adapt as our students adapt and evolve. So obviously we respond to those messages, but even if you respond, that we do it in a promptly way. What does that mean? That usually means, you know, I would say no more than 2 days. And actually I have a little rule of thumb that even if it means I get them in my phone, and even if I'm busy and I'm doing something else, but I see that it's something urgent for a student, I will reply them and tell them, right now I'm not near my computer. Give me about 2 hours and then I'll let you know what, I'll fix that for you. So at least I let him know, I saw your message. That is that peace of mind that we were talking about. I'm promptly telling you, I know it, and I'm buying myself some time to fix it, right? Because I may need to look into it. Yesterday, Wendy helped me, a student emailed me a question about the system. And I was like, I have no idea what did I do wrong? It turned out I didn't do anything wrong, but here my wing girl, my wing lady helped me. So, but I told the students, let me check it and I'll get back with you. And again, it was the promptness. And also that we communicate the revised expectations. What does that mean? So for example, when I had to log into Zoom, I will give people a 5-minute window to log in and start the class. Because I know everybody's logging in today with Zoom. I'm the presenter and it made me log in like 3 times just because it didn't want to let me in. So it's those things that we are adapting, again, to give them a more chance to react and address. And also voicing concerns. Our students want to be heard, but what does that mean? Sometimes we're like, can you tell me specifically what does that mean so I can do better and improve my performance? So here it is, that we ask them about their concerns about the class. And it doesn't have to be super formal. It can just simply be, for example, what I do when I start a Zoom meeting, or if we had an interruption, or I can send an email to everyone saying, hey, just making sure everyone is doing okay. If you have any concerns, do you mind replying to this email and letting me know what's going on? That's it. I do that also in the beginning of class when I'm on Zoom classes. We chat, we use the Zoom function, the chat function to kind of break the ice. And then I ask, okay, does anyone have any concerns? Can I answer anybody's question? Or at least can I get you a little bit more confused, right? I try to throw a little bit of humor to kind of, especially when we are already stressed, right? I tell them if I don't know the answer, at least I can confuse you a little bit more. Also, for example, you can ask them, what are your concerns about what's going on right now? Can I help anyone connect you with resources or something? No, so something along how we're living in this new reality of the class being interrupted. Also, we want to use an amicable tone, all right? We often may take for granted that we're talking to students and we think we are being relaxed, or we think that we are being, very approachable. Certainly with our tone, when we're presenting, it's easier. So my recommendation, especially if you're gonna send a written email, or do an announcement on your LMS, try to use more words. As we know in emotional intelligence, acknowledging the background and the situation helps the other person more and helps them to be connected. So this is when we may need to use a little bit of more words to convey, hey, how is everyone doing? I just want to share with you today, obviously in the morning, my Wi-Fi was not working or something happened with me. But again, I want to let you know that I understand that just as I'm going through difficulties, I acknowledge you might be as well. So notice how, again, by you writing a little bit of more words, because remember, we cannot read the tone of an email sometimes. So we have to try a little harder and be a little bit more expressive when writing those emails. Also, give them opportunities to actually express their concerns throughout the class. What does that look like? Well, it can be, for example, send them an email in the middle of the week. If you send a weekly email, make it part of that email. Hey, just checking how everyone is doing. At the beginning of class, if you're doing a Zoom class, make sure you say, hey guys, if you have any concerns or anything, you can use the chat function. So that there are some people who are shy, right? And they might not want to be put on the spot. There's also, for example, people who their home situation is not ideal. I had students, as I'm sure all of you have, taking classes, for example, from the Wi-Fi on McDonald's because their Wi-Fi was out. I had a student who had to drive 45 minutes because they live in the farm, but they will drive the 45 minutes to log in for class. And the last thing they wanted is to be put on the spot when you're there on their cell phone, right? So they will use the chat function sometimes. So these are all the different venues so that they understand that they can talk to you. And also make sure that when we're doing that you don't just do it, towards in the beginning and then you don't do it again. Because as people's needs and situations change, it's a failure of the service, you want to make sure they're still relevant for them. So it's not enough to only do it once and kind of be done with it. It's an ongoing issue of acknowledging we manage this class, think situations are changing, so I have to make sure people feel that they can voice their concern. Wendy, how are we doing? Do we have any questions so far?
So far, so good. I think that we are listening intently.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Wendy. All right, so let's move on. So what happens? So we took a look, okay, and what are the things that we as professors can change or adapt as we face, for example, that we had a disruption. With regarding how we adjust expectations. The SCARF model, right? Only 2 dimensions are significant. So when we're trying to adapt the expectations of our students just want to make sure that they are still valued, that their status as persona is maintained, and they want to make sure that we voice that we will continue to be fair, right? So these are the 2 key things. So status is, I was still valued by my instructor. I still feel like I'm accepted, even if, for example, they cannot log in live. We're not going to give them a guilt trip. We're not going to make them feel less. We're not going to make them feel that they're not good enough because they couldn't log in a live class. And my instructor respected me. We can have differences. I accept that your situation is different than mine. I respect your status. And that, when they hear that we're respecting what their status is, leads to them adjust their expectations and remain happy and satisfied and motivated to learn. Now, fairness, what does that mean? That means that we as professors continue to communicate. How am I making decisions, right? I'm being transparent. And again, this one, I believe, if you think about it, connects to emotional intelligence that let us know that people always want to know the background and they want to understand where somebody's coming from so they can develop that empathy and acceptance and understanding. So explain to them what is happening. How are you making the decisions? Are they reasonable? Are you allowing to accommodate for others, right? What happened? Like, for example, if you make a mistake and you open an assignment, you say that the assignment is due on the 17th, but in reality it was due on the 14th. Well, it will be unfair to tell the students, if you think about it, no, it's not due on the 17th, it's due on the 14th. Leave it open it from the 14th to the 17th. Some people might submit early, some people might submit late. I try to never punish students for my mistakes. If I already open it to the 17th by mistake, well, stays open. Maybe I'm gonna give you a few more days of a window. And also students feel that they receive a grade they deserve, right? So communicating our decisions, where we're coming from, significantly helps. Now, when we're talking about promptness, how can I be a prompt professor? Well, we discussed that. What matters for the students with SCARF, students want us to remain, they want to make sure, again, their status matters. And that truly doesn't surprise me. I believe all of us want to make sure that we are seen and treated and respected as humans, that our human dignity matters. I'm not surprised status came out again in promptness, right? We always respect who you are. I accept you. that stays firm. But students also want certainty, and needless to say, yes, they want fairness. So what does the certainty look like when we're doing this and we're trying to adapt and recover, right? So that we are communicating with them still, what are clear rules and order that are essential for my success as a student? So let me know, what are the rules? Well, the rules are, if you cannot log into the live class, or if you cannot come back to class, let's say it's not necessarily only online, you're meeting face-to-face, but you had a hurricane, you can send them an email and say, hey, I understand some of you might be stranded, attendance is not gonna count for the next few days, right? That is the certainty of rules will continue to be applied, I'm still adapting, and I'm letting you know so that you don't lose that sense of certainty, that peace of mind. Also, I knew what to expect from different assignments. And this kind of goes back to not only our instructions, but also, for example, how are we going to change? So for example, I'll tell students when we have service disruptions, email it to me, or email it to me or submit it on the LMS. Ideally, yes, I want you to submit it on the LMS, but if you can't, email it to me and I will still count it, right? Or some people who meet face-to-face, they might say, okay, just print it and bring it over, right? If people still print, there might be people who still use paper, right? So just make sure that we provide them a certainty that perhaps there are different available solutions that we're willing to consider. And also that we continue to have a structure. It doesn't matter whether, again, we cannot meet or we cannot not meet. Sometimes as simple as an email and an announcement to the class and let them know, okay, I am stranded, my car is, you had a flood or something, severe weather, it doesn't matter, whatever it was, maybe you're out on a surgery. So again, this is what's gonna happen. Maybe we're not gonna meet in the next 2 weeks or in the next week, but in the meantime, you are responsible for doing this and this and this. And when I come back, we'll do an assessment and see where we are. So notice how you're giving them a certainty and you're giving them fairness. I will assess the situation. It is also important, I believe, and this is a personal learning, to give us instructors grace in terms of we don't have to know everything in the moment or decide everything in the moment. So one of the things that I've allowed myself as an instructor is definitely, okay, this is what's happening. I have 10 students who are, I haven't heard back from, so I don't know what's going on. I have others here. So I send them an email and saying, in the meantime that we meet again, try to continue to work on A, B, and C. And when we come back together, either online or face-to-face, I'll make an assessment and then we'll decide and do what's best for the class. So notice how, again, no need to decide everything on the same day. Buy yourself some time and grace to continue to move forward. And then obviously fairness, again, that we are transparent, we give explanations, also that we give equitable access to opportunities. And you might say, well, but I don't hide opportunities from students. What does that mean? Well, that means, for example, to even sometimes think of perhaps students don't know that they have resources. So sometimes equitable means think about what they know and they don't know. So I want to make sure they use it, right? We have a free resource, use it. So I send them emails, sometimes a general email, when we've had this service recovery issue that we need to recover. For example, I send an email to my class letting them know, hey, if any of you are having food insecurity, we have the pantry on floor 3 in this room, in this building, just to let you know. And if there's anything that I can do for you, if you think I can help you, just send me a private email, a private message. Even when we're in class and I make this announcement, I'll tell them, if you want to email me or see me at the end of class, so that you can give them some privacy, again, because they might need opportunities, but you might also want to protect their anonymity. And then again, the perception that you're communicating with them, that you'll continue to be fair. You might say, but I am fair. Yes, I hear you. And sometimes people, when they are in a stressful situation, it's not that we don't know it, it's that we forget. The study and literature show us, especially also talking to psychologists, when we are stressed, when your class is already interrupted, people process information different. So it's not that they're taking it against us, It's just, they just simply are not, you know, like they say, does not compute what's happening here. So remind them, hey, I know it's stressful. I will continue to be fair. I will follow the syllabus. I will follow the instructions that I gave you. You do that as well, and we will be fine. So notice how by reminding them and communicating that, it restores their balance, their internal balance. And then how do they voice concerns? Well, at the end, again, the same ones with the exception of relatedness. So in this one, yes, obviously, when there's something that's worrying me, or I don't understand what happened to this assignment. Did the due date change? Can I get an extension? Or I'm not sure how to do this. So again, we continue to respect their human dignity. We continue to give them certainty. You know, I hear you, you feel like we changed this, and I can see that how, because we lost touch last week. Again, so you give them certainty, again, follow your syllabus, follow the instructions, let me know. And also, students want to feel on this one, when there's something they want to communicate, think of it as sometimes they want to complain, but not only complain. People tend to associate that students only want to complain. Oftentimes what I find is, first off, if a student is complaining, it's too late, right? Something already happened bad. So then you really have to go dig and fix it. But I oftentimes find that, and this is what I encourage students, I tell them, and I'm very consistent about this. I email them and I tell them, if you don't talk to me, I cannot read your mind. I don't know if you are out of a job. I don't know if you have to work an extra shift. I don't know if this or that. Talk to me. The sooner you tell me, the sooner I can support you. And that's how I frame it. And it has always seemed to work. I always see the goodwill of students who are very prompt and let me know, hey, I have to work a double shift next week. I cannot come to class. Can I watch it later? Or can I do this? And I'm certainly, yes, that's fine. I understand. So relatedness means the students want to feel heard. Just like we want to be heard, your students also want to be heard. So this is when it's helpful when we're talking to them, either verbally or in an email, in a written communication. I always recommend people to start writing with an I sentence. I hear you. I see what you're saying. I can only imagine how that felt, right? Or I hear you, I'm in the same situation. And then you can say something else, or then you can say whatever solution, whether you accept it or not accept it. The key issue with using an I language, like I hear you, I see you, I see what happened, is that we're not using you. When we're saying I, it's coming from us saying, yes, I, as a person, see what happened. When we say, yeah, you did not do that, notice how now it sounds confrontational and it sounds like you're attacking people, right? So always about trying to say you, because then again, it makes people go on the defense. But if we say, I see you, I heard, it's also true. You cannot control anybody else's behavior, only our own. So it also helps to maintain that relatedness. That's a little trick that I learned from reading psychology literature. Also, they want to feel connected. So sometimes I'll just send an email and say, hey, everyone, I know we're still disconnected. I know some of you are struggling. Just want to let you know, I hear you. As soon as you can, let me know if you're going to be able to log in next week or what's going on. Just something, just a little, even if they don't reply. The very fact that you took the time to send that 1-minute sentence in that email, people appreciate it, right? And again, people want to feel like you're part of a group. So try not to make blank statements like everyone needs to do this, or you already have a disruption, something already went up. And just as they might need grace, we might need grace as well, right? So we never know when we are going to get ill, when we're going to need an emergency surgery, or somebody in our household is going to need our support. So just as they want to feel respected, that their status remains, and that relatedness, we might also need it one day. Now, these are the ways so far how we can do it. And last, I want to show you, as you can see, this is a summary slide. So SCAR, where does it matter? To adjust their expectations, it's all about, again, status and fairness, being prompt with your communications, being prompt with how you address issues. It's again, your certainty and your S and your F, and same with the voicing concerns. Who can tell me which one was the only element of scarf that did not matter? And I was surprised, I have to admit it. Who caught it? Going once, going twice. It was actually autonomy.
Yeah, because Cassandra chimed in right at the last minute and said the autonomy was didn't matter. Cassandra wins.
Exactly. Notice, isn't that surprising? Students do not want autonomy, and autonomy means that we pretty much the way we word it, the way we study it, that students don't want to be in control rather than the constructor being in control of me. I was able to find new ways of doing things. That's the last thing student wants. Students don't want autonomy. They want certainty. They want relatedness. They want fairness. Tell me what to do. Tell me how to do it, and tell me kindly. That's how I can best summate it. Again, tell me what to do. Tell me how to do it, and say so kindly, respecting my dignity as a person and giving me that certainty that I need. But yes, no, autonomy, it was not relevant. It's the opposite. So I have to admit, I was very surprised when we saw this, that trying to maintain our students' motivations, autonomy is the last thing they want. And that's it. That concludes my presentation, everyone. Can I answer any questions for anyone?
Thank you so much, Laura. We can wait to see if anybody chimes into the chat, but I also just dropped a link for your introduction to business courseware. So if you want to give us just a quick background on that, that'd be great.
Yes, absolutely. Also, I just became an author with Stuken. I have to say that it's a dream come true that I thought I would never get to experience. Me and my co-author, Dr. Rich Miller, with the University of Dallas, we wrote what commonly known in the industry as a textbook. Here in Stuken is called a courseware. So we wrote a courseware about introduction to business. And we wrote it from the perspective that our students want to do both. They want to become entrepreneurs, but they also want to go work for companies. And one of my pet peeves that I usually see with coursewares or textbooks is that they are written in such a generic way, right? In such a big way, like everybody's going to go work for somebody else. So we acknowledge that, and we took a perspective that introduction to business to also acknowledge that our students are the backbone sometimes of our entrepreneurial force. They're going to go join it. So we wrote it with that. And we also included something that we call power skills. Our students nowadays, they want to know, and they need to know about grit. They need to know about resilience. They need to know about redefining failure and success. So we include a chapter on that so that we as instructors can hopefully start making a difference in how we prepare our students.
Hey, Laura, Cassandra is working on a project, and she asked if you have a paper that's been published with this research.
Yes, I do. And if you are more than happy to connect with me on academia.edu or also on my LinkedIn as Laura Munoz, PhD. But you can find the abstract. Right now it's being published as the proceedings for the SMA conference. We just actually presented it last year. So yes, and right now we're actually working on the journal submission. Literally, right before I logged in here, I was still emailing my co-authors. We're getting ready to send it. But yes, you can look up the abstract here. Or you can email me here's my email at elmunoz@udallas.edu, and I'm happy to send you the proceeding as well.